Hey, welcome, my friends. We are going to be looking at the secret of David HaMelech's crown. What does it mean to engage with the crown of King David? What can the crown of King David teach us? So I want to share with you some Gemaras which seem to be very, very strange. And hidden within these Gemaras are very deep secrets that we're going to try and unpack together. So these Gemaras initially stem from the Gemara in Avodah Zarah. And the Gemara in Avodah Zarah on the 44th page tells us like this. It says that King David took a crown from his enemy. And this crown, which was used of Malcolm, which was an idolatrous king, this individual had imbued that energy of idolatry into the crown. So the Gemara asks, how can it be that King David can take such a crown if it was imbued with idolatrous energy? We're told that the weight of the crown was a kikar of zahav. Now, a kikar of zahav is an unbelievably heavy entity. We're dealing with something that is impossible for a human being to hold on their head. Okay, you can imagine people carrying things on their heads in baskets. We're told that, you know what weighed a kikar of zahav? All of the vestments, all of the menorah, the golden menorah, and all of the entities that surrounded the menorah, the weight of that was a kikar of zahav, of gold. So imagine that on your head. Not a very pleasant thing to wear, even though it might have had a beautiful jewel or jewels or beautiful gold embedded. But to have this on your head. But the Gemara asks us, how on earth is this something that is permitted to wear for a king of Israel, to wear a crown that was associated with idolatry? So Yisur Hananinhu, the Gemara tells us it's prohibited to get any benefit from something that was imbued with that energy. So Rav Nachman tells us, Itai Hagiti Bao Bitla. It says that Itai, the Giti, came along and he revoked the status of idolatry associated with this crown. That is point number one. Point number one is we see that this crown of David, out of all the crowns that he could have chosen to wear, out of all the places that he could have taken it from, out of all of the designs that he could have created for himself, he needs to take a crown from an idolatrous source. What's going on here? And that idolatrous source needs to then be nullified in order for it then to have the ability to sit on its head. Okay, that's point number one that we have to understand. The Gemara then goes even more into this very unique deliberation. And it says like this. The Gemara says, Meshakla kika zahav. Heichi matze manachla. How on earth can a talent of gold sit on King David's head? This is way too heavy for any human being to have something on his head of this particular weight. So the Gemara tells us three very, very seemingly external reasons. If we read them, you go, all right, okay, cool. We know that everything that is written in the Torah and everything that is spoken across is here to teach us something of a very deep nature. So let's try and listen to what is being said on a deeper level and try and understand how we can interpret this Gemara. So at this point in time, we have a very heavy crown sitting on the king's head. We want to understand how on earth it's sitting on his head. So Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Rav. Yehuda says, or Rav Yehuda says in the name of Rav, the answer as to how it was on King David's head was Ra'uya lanuach al roish David. Is in fact, it never actually sat on his head. This crown, maybe it was in a nice little cabinet, but it never actually sat on King David's head. It was ru'uya, which means it was fitting for him. It had a perfect circumference that allowed it to sit on his head. Perfect circumference. That's what it means, that it was fitting for him. He never wore it, but it was the perfect size. And we're told that in history, what would happen if a person was to be measured, if they were worthy of being a king of Israel, they would take the crown to see if it fits their head. If it didn't fit their head, not a good fit. First opinion. Never wore it. It was fitting to be on his head, though. Okay, thanks for that, Rabbi Yehuda Marav. Then we have another opinion. Rabbi Yosi Rabbi Chanina. Rabbi Yosi Rabbi Chanina tells us a crazy concept. If they had such technology back then, I have no idea, but clearly they did. What was the technology? He says, Even shoyeves haisaba. Dahavas darala. It says that it had a particular stone known as a lodestone or a type of magnet. And this magnet would allow the crown to somewhat levitate above his head. Can you imagine such an entity? Have you ever seen such an entity? I mean, this is something that the magicians use maybe, but to have a crown that has lodestone in it, fascinating concept. That's the second opinion. That it was held up by a lodestone, by a magnet. All right, interesting. Thank you for that as well. And comes the final opinion. And this is the opinion of Rebbe Lazar. And Rebbe Lazar tells us, you know what it means that it had such a heavy weight of kikar zahav, a talent of gold, which is unbelievably heavy, is in fact, you know what? It didn't have that amount of gold, but Even Yakara Haisaba, there was a very, very expensive stone that was set into this crown, Sheshava kikar zahav, that it was of the same value as a kikar zahav. So it wasn't that the crown actually, it was made of all of this gold. It was maybe plated in gold, maybe very thin gold, but it had a stone in it. And that stone was the same value as a kikar of zahav. Wow, unbelievable. Transformative. That's why it's called Transformative Tuesdays. This is unbelievable transformational stuff here. Can you believe what we have just read? The secrets of King David's crown. Now the question is, what on earth are we meant to garner from these secrets? Why did King David, or why are we even told about this unique crown that he held? So does anyone have any suggestions that they want to posit here before we delve into the depths of this particular teaching? Anyone at home have a suggestion? Anyone here have a suggestion? Yes, Reb Levi Gimple with his new haircut. What do you want to suggest?
Did it have any like similar wording to when Moshe was like so have Levites were like desperate need and like floating, or was it kind of different?
Well, it seems that this lodestone was holding it up. It was being held up by some entity. Yeah, I have no idea how this technology worked. I'm thinking to myself, does he have magnets around his neck? Does he have like a magnet on his head and then the other magnet? I have no idea. Was it that it was suspended in the middle of the air? Like, how is this working? I don't really know. But at this point in time, we could easily move on from this Gemara and say, thank you, some really interesting information. But, I could probably think of some more interesting information that I'd probably keep in my pocket. This, maybe I'll give to someone else, some nice pieces of information. So let's understand some very deep secrets together. So the secrets that I want to engage with you are going to be built up. Let's have a look and let's understand. What does it mean to wear a crown? What does a crown represent in Judaism? What does a crown represent in our own lives? So the Likutei Maharan tells us like this. V'pnimius berchan shudakas berchan nisbarach mehen mesada miyashev esaseichel shibechinas keter. You know what it means to wear a crown? What it means to wear a crown is that you have a yishuv aseichel. Miyashev your seichel means that you settle your mind. A settled mind is a crown. When you have a settled mind in Judaism, in Kabbalah, it's referred to as a crown. Shibechinas keter. That is the energy of keter. We know that if you look at the new beautiful picture that we have here in the shul, look at the highest spiritual energy there in the black circle there. Can someone read it for me? Keter, the highest level that a person can reach in their spiritual consciousness is something called keter, which means the crown. And what he's saying here is the definition of keter, the definition of crown, is that you're able to settle your mind. That the energy of God, the energy of presence, the energy of I am is with you. Now listen to this, another beautiful and powerful piece. Keter, not only does the word keter mean crown, but keter hu lashon hamtana. The word keter also means hamtana. What's hamtana mean? Hamtana means to wait. One of the most hated things, especially by our generation, to wait. We hate waiting. Waiting for anything is unbelievably grueling. What on earth are you meant to do while you're waiting? You know, we immediately engage with whatever can distract us, but the most painful thing is to wait. I don't know what's happening. I don't know when it's going to happen, to wait. But the energy that one is able to tap into and feel okay with waiting is the deepest energy that a person is able to access from a spiritual consciousness. That the word keter means also the word Qatar. Qatar, not the airlines, but Qatar as the energy force in Hebrew, which is an Aramaic word, in fact, not Hebrew, which means wait. As it says in Eov Qatar li ze'er. What does that mean? Well, the way that Rav Nachman is putting it, what does it mean to wait? It means like this. It means that when you're feeling unsettled in your brain, in your mind, and you say to someone, just wait. Just wait for me for a moment. Let me just settle my mind. That's called keter. To wear a crown, we're seeing, according to Rabbi Nachman, and the deeper insight which we're going to glean from the Gemara, is the ability to settle and organize your thoughts and your mind. V'gam sham tzarich emuna bebechinas amoin mufla. And in order to engage with a settled mind, you need something called emuna. Emuna is the feeling of safety, the feeling that everything is being held. Okay, let's see the next piece. As Rabbi Nachman tells us in the Likutei Maharan, in the next source, he writes that again, the energy of the crown is that you are able to settle and organize your brains. What does it mean, your brains? So we know, or your minds, we know that we have three minds. We have three minds known as Das, Bina, and Chochmah. Three minds, three different energy forces of consciousness and thinking. Yes, Matthew. Great question. Why is Das not on our image? Das is a hidden entity, and it is not considered Keter, or the energy of Keter or Yichud. Yochida is generally considered as the highest moichin, as the highest state of consciousness. But its manifestation in ourselves, which we won't go into in a deep level, is when it touches the space of emotion, is when it turns into das. So or this keter and its manifestation into das, those two things almost are aligned. Okay, we won't go into that now. That's an entirely different discussion. But to have one's energy from a conscious mind openness being arranged and ordered and settled is the definition of a crown. Understand this. Your ability to organize and contain your mind, that it doesn't go outside of the boundary. What does it mean to go outside of the boundary? Is that it goes into dangerous territory. You're driving next to a cliff. You don't want to go off the boundary, do you? It's quite dangerous. There are parts of the mind that if you can't hold your mind into the spaces that it needs to be held, and it falls off onto going over the boundary, that is not the definition of a crown. Now, what is a crown? A crown is a boundary for the head. It represents a boundary, a fence for the mind. That's what a crown is. This energy of crowning the mind or putting a fence around the mind is your crown. This is the understand this, a very deep concept. He says that one of the most dangerous things of the mind is it gets too hungry. And what does it get too hungry for? It gets too hungry for infinity. The mind wants to expand constantly. And its way of expansivity is to tap into the Or Ein Sof, it's to tap into this endless light called existence, called everything, called Hashem, called the oneness. So it's deeply searching and constantly trying to access that place, deeply unsatisfied. The ability to put a crown in your head and say, whoa, just calm down. Just calm down. Let's arrange this. Let's get this in order. Let's not go off the rails in terms of where we're looking for our infinite connectivity. Let's just have a little bit of a boundary here. Let's taper our expectations is the crown of the mind. Now listen to this unbelievable Tosfos. This is a Tosfos in Avodah Zarah on the 4th page there. And Tosfos in Avodah Zarah asks, when Bilam Harasha, the evil prophet, Bilam, who came to curse the Jewish people, it tells us there in the Gemara that Bilam was able to know a particular time where God's wrath, whatever that means, is expressed into the world. It's an energy field that he knew how to intuit, that he was able to tap into a particular negative force and curse through that. So Tosfos asks a very powerful question. Tosfos asks, what could anyone do in a moment, in a split second? What are you able to say? What in a split second could you say that is able to curse? I mean, I'm sure we can think of many curse words. But again, remember, he's really tapping into a proper curse. It's not just using a word that is going to just offend someone. He's trying to define an energy. You know what word? It says in Tosfos that Bilam uses. It says, V'yesh loymar haya omer kalein. It says that he used the word kalein. What's kalein mean? In Hebrew, the word kalein means to destroy. Give out, destroy. But surprisingly, listen to the words of Tosfos. Ve'hakadosh baruch hu hafchoi v'amar melech. The word kalein, chaf, chaf, lamed, mem, which means destruction, if rearranged, spells melech. Hashem played Scrabble with Bilam. Bilam threw out the word kalein, which means to destroy, and Hashem turned it into the word melech, which means king. Now, why is this so fascinating? So the Nefesh HaChaim tells us what is the definition of destruction and what is the definition of being a king. So we are told that there are 3 seats of energy within ourselves. There is the seat of the liver. Interesting that we had some karate experts in shul, and I asked them, what is the force that you fight from that is at your core? And they said it's below the navel, where the liver is. And according to Kabbalistic wisdom, one's energy field of the body is exactly where the liver is. And that is referred to as the nefesh, or the kaved, which is the liver. Then we have the next energy force, which is the heart, the lave. And the lave is the force or the source of one's emotional energy, which is the ruach, which is the soul, which is in charge and brings emotional energy into our body. And then we have something called the moach. The moach, which is the brain, is the energy of thought, which is where the neshama sits. Why am I telling you this? Because the order of events is that the mind has hierarchy over the emotion, which has hierarchy over the action. When the mind has hierarchy over the emotion, which then has hierarchy over the action, and you take the first letters of moyach, which spells mem, and leiv, which is a lamed, and chaf of the kaved, which is the liver, it spells melech, it spells king. But when it's all mixed around, when it's, maybe this is where CBT comes from, but when it's all mixed around, when it's the liver, the energy of the body, the desire and the physical interaction with this world and the self and pleasure, whatever that is, then is what governs the emotion, which is then what governs the mind. You have something called kalein. You have destruction. So what we see here again is a fundamental concept that the definition of a king is a person that has cognitive hierarchy over emotional, over physical. Not to say that we deny any of those spaces, but it's to say there is a deliberation, there is an order. And that order starts off with the mind. Now, this is unbelievable. That is all a fundamental introduction for what we're about to see. Because we are told like this, that if one was to remember, what was the source of the crown of King David? Who remembers where we started off reading that it was sourced in? Anyone remember? It was sourced in idolatry. What does it mean that his crown was sourced in idolatry? So listen to what Likutei Maharan in 61 tells us. Aval kashenidon hamoisaris alidei pagam emunas chachamim azai oilim ashanim sruchim el hamoyach. It says when a person loses their way and they lose their emunas chachamim, they start to question everything in Judaism from a state of negativity, and they start to undermine the hierarchies within the platform of Judaism. What happens is the brain starts to bubble, and smoke starts to enter into the mind and confuse the das, confuse one's consciousness. And what happens is you lose your ability to judge clearly in your own life. And all your judgments are completely out of whack. As it says, ki rasha machtiras tzaddik. Al kein yetze mishpat me'ukal hain al yedei she'ashonim esruchim b'mesavim mekifin ha'moyach m'mbarbelin osay l'yedei zeh yetze mishpat me'ukal. What we refer to this is the wicked man is the crown. What we are seeing is this fundamental liberation of the crown, in which the mind has the potential to enter into the idolatrous crown, enter into the space where it is completely confused by the smoke and by the smog of a person's misguided and lost of hierarchy in terms of who they are. King David had to take this crown. Same to every single one of us has an opportunity to take our own crowns from the space where the mind has gone off into places of problematic engagement. Now, what we said earlier on is that the energy of Keter, the energy of the crown, we said was the energy of waiting. Not only is it the energy of waiting, but I want you to have a look at page number 4. Page number 4 tells us like this. Nimtza, look at Likutei Maharan at the top. Nimtza shalidei shedanim es hakol lechavschus. Shalidei zeh sheshoiskin loik mevaze oisoi. Imagine the following experience, one of the most traumatic experiences a person can experience, and that is being insulted. That is being in a space where a person is being attacked. That is in a space where someone has backstabbed you, God forbid, or said something to you which undermines you in public. How do you feel? In that space, a person feels so overwhelmed. They feel a sense of anger. They feel a sense of judgment. They feel a sense of negativity. They feel a sense of feeling forlorn, dejected. And what the Likutei Maharan says is when a person is able to tap into something called silence, shtika, when they are being disparaged, which we're going to go into that particular verse and see what that means. But what he says here is when a person is able to hold themselves in a time of being disparaged and attacked, they've tapped into their keter. They've tapped into their energy of crown. So what we have seen so far is that there is an order of events. There is an experience of life. There's an experience of self. And the mind can go into all different places. And when a person feels that life is attacking them, or they are being attacked in their own life, or they feel stressed and anxious or overwhelmed, what do you do? What do you do? Do you go crazy? Do you flip out? Do you go mad? What he says here is the ability to tap into silence is your ability to tap into the crown. Now we learn this, but at the same time, we see this completely expressed in one of the most Kabbalistic pieces. And this piece that I'm going to share with you is one of the most important pieces I think that a person is able to learn. Listen to this story that is told in Shmuel Hanavi in the last verse here where it says Shmuel base. We are told as King David was approaching Bahurim, a member of Shaul's clan, a man named Shimei ben Gera, Shimei the son of Gera, came out from there hurling insults as he came. We are told that King David was kicked out of his own kingdom in Jerusalem by his son Avshalom. And his own son ransacks his father's entire kingdom and is kicked out. Can you imagine what an experience that may be? It's impossible to imagine something of that nature, impossible to actually envisage. We won't go into the intricacies of what his son did to King David's family and then to his wives, etc., etc. But of some unspeakable travesties transpire. Now imagine King David walking out dejected. Imagine those days, God forbid, when you feel dejected and you feel low. Not that anyone here may ever feel such things, but let's imagine. Now someone comes up to you and tells you off. Someone comes up to you and disparages you. How do you feel? It's like, leave me alone. I've already experienced so much, and now you want to throw this onto me? We are told that Shimi ben Gera comes out and starts to chuck insults, throw insults at King David. And not only throws insults, he throws stones at David. Now, David is surrounded by troops. These troops are serious individuals that have been versed in battle. And all of the warriors are surrounding David. And these are the insults that Shimi ben Gera hurls out to King David. Get out, he calls him. Get out, you criminal and villain. The Lord is paying you back for all your crimes against the family of Shaul, whose throne you seized. The Lord is handing over your throne to your son, Absalom. You are in trouble because you're a criminal. Abishai, the son of Zeruiah, said to the king, this is one of the warriors surrounding David, why let that dead dog abuse my lord, the king? Let me go over and cut off his head. Very easy for me to go and knock him off. But the king said, what have I and you? What has this to do with you? He is abusing me only because the Lord told him to abuse David. And who is to say, why did you do that? King David came along and he said like this, whatever is happening to me right now, whatever I'm going through in my life right now, I need to go through because Hashem has orchestrated this to happen. Whatever we see transpiring, no matter how difficult it is to swallow, I know I have to go through this right now. There's a fascinating teaching by the Sefer HaChinuch. The Sefer HaChinuch says, you know why you're not allowed to take retribution or revenge? Because he says, why are you hitting the stick and not the hand? You think it's that person? You think that person did that to you? That person is just the stick. The hand of Hashem is what has held that stick. Why are you taking revenge? And King David's understanding that this has had to happen to me, we are told not only in his silence did he carry on walking while Shimi ben Gera carried on hurling stones and insults at him, but we are told one of the most Kabbalistic concepts, which is brought down in the Shmiras HaLashon in the book, we are told from the Chofetz Chaim, that it says that at that exact moment where King David accepted upon himself that judgment of God, that way that the world was manifesting in his life, right at that moment, the verse tells us that at that exact moment, he became the fourth wheel of the chariot of the Merkava. What is the chariot of the Merkava? The Merkava is a chariot, but we have this concept in Judaism, a Kabbalistic concept called the Merkava, which is a chariot, which takes a person to the highest levels of spiritual consciousness. It takes you before God, whatever that means. There's meditations that people used to engage with that taps into this chariot. So originally, the chariot had three wheels. Who are these individuals? Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. It says at the moment that King David stayed silent and didn't respond to Shimi ben Gera and was able to find silence in himself, did he reach the level of the fourth wheel of the chariot. Now, my question to you is this as we come to a conclusion. If we come back to the original question of the Gemara, how could King David wear such a heavy crown on his head. We ask ourselves the same question. Cool. We all want settled minds. We all want deep serenity. We all want to have the ability to deal with stress and anxiety in a way that doesn't take us off kilter. We all want to have an inner serenity in terms of our experience of life, an inner silence where we don't have a dependency of other people and their perceptions of us or what they say to us. But that crown is heavy. That's a hectically heavy crown. It's all nice and well when, things are going your way, but then when things are topsy-turvy, to then wear that crown on your head, sure, that's a heavy crown. So the Gemara is asking, how could King David wear this crown on his head? What did he do, or what mechanisms did he have in his life that allowed him to have this crown on his head? And the first mechanism we saw, for those who can remember, who remembers, that's the last one, we'll get to it. What was the first one, but very good? What was the first reason of the Gemara? The first reason of the Gemara that's brought is he wasn't wearing it. He wasn't wearing it, but it was fitting for him to wear it. Ra'uya lanuach. Ra'uya lanuach means this. What's ra'uya lanuach? It's fitting to rest. It's fitting to rest means this. What we all want in life is predictability. What we want in life is things to make sense. What we want in life is things to fit into the way we perceive the world. But there's another way. And in fact, this is the supernal, or this is the transcendental, or this is the true method of having a sense of tranquility. And that is when a person is able to look at the world and say, this energy or whatever I'm experiencing is ra'uya. It's fitting, but not only fitting for me on a perfect level, but it's fitting for me to get to a place called lanuach. Lanuach means that I want to get to a place where I feel rest. If you remember when we had our shiur previously, where we dealt with the concept of Yaakov seeking to rest. Bikesh Yaakov leishev b'shalvet says that Yaakov wanted to seek or live in a space of tranquility. And Rashi tells us there, based on the Midrash, that immediately everything caught up with him. Everything, some of the most atrocious and hectic environments met Yaakov's life, with Yosef being taken as a captive. And Rashi tells us there what? In the world to come, you already have peace. You want it in this world as well. So it sounds like a very sadistic type of concept. Like you got to suffer in order to have the peace in the world to come. You can't have it in both worlds. You can't have your cake and eat it too. But on a deeper level, what we are learning is that Hashem doesn't want us to reach a level of serenity that's based on something extrinsic to you. Hashem wants us to reach a level of serenity which is intrinsic to us. And the intrinsic serenity is the ability to look at life and say, Ra'uya. Ra'uya. I don't understand what is happening, but I know it's perfectly measured for me to evolve into a space of higher consciousness. This is there to give me my crown. Ra'uya. The greatest inability to experience serenity is when a person says, no. This is not fitting for me. The way that life is manifesting right now, not right for me. Not right. I don't accept. One of the greatest things that a person can do is accept. One of the greatest understandings is it's perfectly manifest for you in this way. You had to experience this way in order for you to evolve into your crown. And that crown is what stays with you. That's the first concept of what it means. Now, when a person has that perception, you know what suddenly starts to happen? Oh, not so heavy anymore. Not so heavy anymore. When I understand, and we all know this, in those circumstances where we look back and we say, gosh, that was such a stressful moment, but it was worth it. It was worth it. When we see the greater context, it wasn't as heavy anymore. What happened? When a person says Ra'uya, that's the first step. The second step we said was that there was a lodestone. There was a magnet that kept up this crown. What does that mean? So what it means is like this. One of the greatest pressures that a person has in life is to achieve. And we place unbelievable pressures on ourselves to be perfect and to manifest perfectly. One of the greatest revelations I had listening to many different teachings, one of them really allowed this concept to percolate in my mind and soul, was I was listening to the author of Eat, Pray, and Love. And the author of Eat, Pray, and Love was speaking about how she had this unbelievable bestseller. And this was the worst experience of her life because now she had the pressure to produce another bestseller. And she was trying her hardest and her creative energy had dried up. She didn't know what to do. And her entire presentation was about this concept that creativity and ability and your access to presentation and what transpires is not in your hands. It's an energy that flows through you. Fascinatingly, she brings that the experience within a football stadium where everyone sings ole, 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 ole. This word ole actually came from the word Allah, which means God. That the energy and the success that is transpiring in a person's life is from Allah. It's from God. It's a space of energy that's flowing through you. And when a person has the understanding that my life and the way that I'm living, and yes, I have to be pragmatic and I have to do what I need to do and I have to put my all in what I can do. But 100% of the outcome is not in my hands. 100% of what is transpiring in my life is Hashem and Hashem only. The outcome is not in your hands, just like the creativity is not in your hands. And she says what she needed to do was show up. She needed to sit at her desk with a piece of paper and a pen, and she would show up. But if that creativity didn't show up, she said, listen, I did my part of the job. All we need to do in life is have that perception. Are we doing our part of the job? Are we putting in what we can put in? Once a person has that understanding, suddenly the heaviness of life starts to be removed. Suddenly a person's creativity starts to flow. Suddenly a person's mind starts to feel more settled. This is a fundamental shift. And the final concept, which is the gemstone, that we are told that what was embedded in this crown was a gemstone, the value of a kikar of zahab, the value of a talent of gold. What do you think this gemstone is here to teach us? Anyone have an idea? What is a gemstone coming to reveal to us? So Rabbi Nachman mentioned it in one of the earlier teachings. And Rabbi Nachman said that in a space where a person is conflicted, he brings a scenario when a person is insulting you, but you're able to look at that person who's insulting you and say, number one, I don't have to listen to what's transpiring through what they're saying and interpret it in a very hurtful way. Because intrinsic to me, I know that there are beautiful stones. And what he says, when you are able to find your beautiful stones, when you are able to say to yourself, intrinsically, I have so much worth. Intrinsically, I have so much grandeur. Intrinsically, I have so much expansivity. This that they're saying to me doesn't affect me because I have stones that are valued at a kikar of zahav. He then takes it a step further and he says, and this person, I can find the stones in them as well. I can find precious stones in them as well. They have a perception. Their mind and their perception of me could be reasonably unreasonable. There are entities of their perception that has given them that stone and their perception of me. So my friends, if we look back and understand the secret of King David's crown, so to conclude, we understand that the crown of David and the secret of the crown of David is that grandeur and wealth and the ability to have dominion over others and power is not what defines our crown. That the essence of our crown is defined by the ability that a person has to settle their mind. That in moments of stress and in moments of conflict and in moments where a person feels frazzled, in that exact moment, a person develops their crown. So much so that the Ben Ish Chai tells us, Ben Ish Chai was one of the greatest Kabbalists, tells us that it says in the verses in the Mishnayos that the tzaddikim yoshvin batroisechem baroshechem, and it says in the world to come, the tzaddikim sit with crowns on their heads. Crowns on their heads? Why on earth did they need crowns on their heads in the world to come? It's not a beauty pageant. It's not, a banquet for kings. What is going on here that they have to have crowns on their heads? And the Ben Ish Chai says that the energy force in the world to come is gleaning from the light of Hashem, of the infinite. But you need something to tap into that energy. You need a antennae that is able to tap into those rays, those energy fields. And he says the crowns of the tzaddikim in the world to come are these antennae. And the way that we develop our crowns is by these crucial moments in life where a person is given a gift. It doesn't feel pleasant. It feels very heavy in those moments. In those moments of life where you're feeling, oh my gosh, stress, conflict, God forbid, those moments are the exact moments where a person is able to develop their crown. And the three aspects of developing the crown we saw was number one, ra'uya. Whatever I am experiencing is necessary. Not only is it necessary, it's a gift for me to develop gamzu l'toiva. This is meant to bring me to a state of higher consciousness, to be able to discover my inner silence, even though externally there is a lot of frazzled experience. Then the second concept that we saw was the gemstone, the lodestone, that this magnet is holding up the crown. That understand in life, whatever you're looking to achieve is not in your hands. You need to show up and you need to do everything you can. But the outcome is completely in the hands of Hashem. And the energy and the success and the creativity that flows in your life comes only from that space. When you're able to let go, you'll see that the accomplishment and the flow is able to be much more pronounced. And then finally, we saw this fundamental piece about the gemstone. And that is that when a person's experiencing that frazzled state, the heaviness of their crown, that a person in that moment is able to say, 1 second, intrinsically, I have a gemstone that is worth all of this. Intrinsically, I have so much worth and so much infinite expanse. And not only that, my experience of everything and everyone else around me has that space of the gemstone. And this is what is able to lighten the load of the Keter, lighten the load of this crown. And please God, this is some insight into the secrets of the crown. It's no wonder why the Jewish people, it says, when we said Naaseh v'nishma, when we said we will do and then we will listen, did we receive, it says, crowns on our heads. When we say to life, we will do. Sometimes we don't understand, but we will go forward without understanding, just into the space of Keter. What the Kabbalists bring, the crown sits around your head. What does that mean to sit around your head? It's the Saviv. There's a part of consciousness of mind which is represented by the space which just surrounds your head, that surrounds a galgalta, your skull. Imagine living life just from this space where I'm not over-interpreting, I'm not over-digesting, I'm not overthinking, I'm not jumping to conclusions, but I am just Naaseh v'nishma. I will do, and I know that I will understand. Eventually I will understand. And in that space of consciousness where I just carry through, holding these different secrets of the crown, does a person have the ability to have Yeshuv Das? A person has the ability to make the right decisions. A person has the ability to experience a mind that is settled and is connected. So please God, Hashem should bless us all in our lives to wear these crowns, even momentarily, is the biggest gift. But we should, please God, have this perpetual state of awareness and this crown always on our heads. And thank you all for joining us. Any final comments or questions?
Rabbi?
Yes.
Can you hear me, Rabbi?
I
Hi,
can.
it's Jacqueline.
Hi,
Rabbi, is there then a connection between the Keter and Rosh Hashanah?
Definitely. That if you think about Rosh Hashanah is transforming the Rosh Hashanah. It's transforming the noise of the year into the Rosh Hashanah, into the head of the year. And that's essentially that is the beginning of the year. And we're trying to tap into that energy field. Now, to just bring us into the space that we're trying to tap into now, with Pesach coming up, which everyone starts to flip out with. And it's a great opportunity for you to work on your inner serenity and calm. I know that Lisa's got a bar mitzvah coming up around that space as well. So a lot of things to think about. If the individual understands, and this is what Rabbi Nachman says, the ultimate experience of chametz is the fermentation of the mind. And what we are here to do is simplify our mind and experience that space of the crown on our minds. And we'll talk about that at a greater length when we discuss the energies of Pesach. But please God, Hashem should bless us with our individual crowns and as well as our nationalistic crown. Please God, with lots of bracha. Any other final questions? Okay, shkach. Thank you, everyone. Lots of bracha. Bye.